My libido has been 0 for the past year, and test scores, they ain't good. Can I please get some advice? All right. I think this would be a very, just probably more relevant question to maybe pass over to two guys.
If you want to truly assess all aspects of your hormonal status, then you don't just want to get your total testosterone assessed. You want to also assess other variables which may be influencing the production of testosterone, and almost trying to assess at what point in the cycle or in the chain of hormone production is testosterone being influenced, since there's many different areas at which it could be disrupted per se. So like, for example, a concept of energy balance in a comp prep or energy availability is likely to influence testosterone differently compared to if your hypothalamus or pituitary is influenced. So going back to the question itself, so there are a number of ways nutritionally and from a lifestyle perspective that if someone came to me for a consult, like, I would essentially just run through a number of different areas to one, see if there's any deficits initially, and then secondly, try and address aspects through lifestyle change or supplementation as well. So one would be sleep. So just ensuring that they're sleeping really well, getting the best sleep possible, and ensuring that their duration and quality of sleep is really good. Sure, sometimes that's not possible, but it definitely could be influencing testosterone, that's for sure. Second to that would be, these are in no particular order, so I won't say second to that. But additionally, stress. So stress is a big one. And again, much easier said than done to just not be stressed. But the body, like, there's lots of different stresses as well. So trying to alleviate mental stress as well as excessive amounts of physical stress, because both of those can influence, well-being as a whole, and will indirectly influence your testosterone as well. So we also have just body composition in general. This kind of can influence your hormones on either end of the curve, where if your body fat is too high, then that's going to negatively impact your testosterone. And if your body fat is too low, just like in comp prep, it's also going to put you into a position where you can't effectively produce enough testosterone. So you ideally want to be in a bit of a sweet spot there, which fortunately that sweet spot is pretty damn large. Like, you can throw a dart in that range pretty easily. And yeah, so as long as you're not maybe sub 10% body fat, I would say, as a broad range. But even then, there are people who are maintaining, like athletes who are maintaining probably sub 10% body fat and have good testosterone. So there definitely is a genetic influence there, or maybe an adaptation variable where maybe you can, if you adapt to it, you can maintain that body composition without deleterious effects. But that's another component too, is genetics. Like, unfortunately, maybe your genetics just don't support the best testosterone levels. And maybe if the individual in question looks at their father or brother or grandfather, like, maybe there's been similar trends for them as well. And just like people can be outliers in terms of having very high testosterone, I mean, the same goes for having lower testosterone as well. And that brings me to diet. So diet's obviously a huge component, and like we want to cover our bases from a nutritional perspective, and there are definitely some nutrients that do influence testosterone more significantly than others. So zinc would be one, magnesium would be one as well, vitamin D, and just being healthy and nourished in general and consuming sufficient calories. Because if you are dipping in and out of a deficit, like if you're maybe yo-yo dieting or binging and restricting, even though your energy balance across the week might be appropriate, like you're having a consistent energy balance across the week or across the month or across 6 months is very different to putting your body in that sort of stress state by having low days, then high days, and etc., or overfeeding and then underfeeding. So yeah, that would be me kind of setting the foundation for this.
Mm-hmm. And can you guys, as guys, please just clarify for the ladies out there, because I think that so many people are under the impression that testosterone is like just directly, obviously it is linked, but I mean, it's not like just a one-on-one with like, oh, low testosterone levels, low libido. Like, what does that actually mean for a male? What does that actually feel like when people talk about, oh, I've completely lost my libido, my testosterone's absolutely tanked? Because it can't just be about sex drive. It can't just be about, let's get it on, all right? It can't just be about like, yeah, let's just freaking do it. Like what else is testosterone really negatively impacting in your guys' lives? And what does that actually feel like for a dude?
I mean, even for me, like coming in for having a most recent experience around libido and I guess that dropping through prep. And I didn't really know what it was going to feel like as well, being my first comp prep. And you hear about all these things around your testosterone levels will drop and libido can change throughout comp prep. And I definitely felt that start to change and throughout comp prep, especially towards the latter end, and I guess still coming out of prep within the recovery phase now, still I guess working through that and still having very low libido, even multiple weeks post prep. And I guess that's one. It is one thing, but it's also the drop in energy levels that you would get from the drop in testosterone as well. Actually, it's the libido as one, but it does come around with energy levels there too. And I guess then even if we look at it from a muscle building perspective, and I guess the influence that testosterone levels have on muscle production and muscle growth, like that's why I guess there is like that common state around how the post stroke period may not be the most optimal period to then to gain muscle and to start to improve because of these hormone markers still coming into place and because it's still being slightly disrupted from being low during prep. So yeah, whilst it is definitely one aspect of libido being related to testosterone, it's multiple other factors as well.
I'm really glad that you made that point because, some people, they could make the argument of like, oh, well, I don't want to do it anyway. I'm not really interested right now. It's like, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but dude, your health, right? Because we have to think, just like what Damien said, like what is testosterone actually involved in the human body, right? It's integral for our bone mineral density, for our skeletal muscle health, for building muscle, for maintaining muscle mass, right? So that's absolutely imperative whether or not, you obviously have a high sex drive or not, even for your cognition and your memory. And yeah, it's just, it's really, really important. So that's why it's very necessary to be paying attention to these sort of things. And again, like it's about what is normal for you as well. So actually having some blood work drawn, when you're actually in the improvement season or, in maintenance phases and etc., probably times outside of prep, to have an idea of, okay, like what are my normal physiological ranges for when I feel really good and I just have general drive in life. And then, during preps, it goes without saying, it's if you're a natural athlete, then it's going to be probably, in most cases, below normal physiological ranges, but by how much? So if you're actually tracking these parameters, then you can really say, okay, me versus me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point to touch on because often people will get symptoms of lower testosterone as they age. And it can be one of those circumstances as well where low testosterone is just the easiest thing to grasp hold of and be like, okay, let's just start testosterone therapy or TRT. And one, because that's shown a lot on social media, like it's very common to see people on TRT or think that people are on TRT, but they're actually on much, much higher doses than TRT. And then people sort of link, oh, this guy says he's on TRT, but he's actually on 5 times TRT. And you link his results with TRT. But the goal of TRT is really just to put you into the healthy physiological, like normal physiological range of testosterone. So don't be fooled by some of these people who say they are running TRT when it's far from it. And that's another conversation altogether. But I think, yeah, make sure that you do address every other lifestyle factor that's within your control before you go down the route of, resolving low testosterone medically. At least that would be my suggestion or my recommendation. And also on top of that, it becomes an interesting one when it regarding the treatment of low testosterone. Are you addressing the symptoms or are you addressing the actual objective reading of your low testosterone through a blood test? Because it's almost like the chicken and the egg scenario in DEXA scans when someone gets a scan on their lower back and they're like, oh, I have no back pain, but apparently I have a bulged disc. Or vice versa, they've got back pain, but their scan looks completely normal. And when it comes to testosterone as well, like if someone has like low testosterone in a blood test, but yeah, symptom-wise, they're completely fine. Like, is there any need to address that? Or vice versa, maybe that their testosterone technically is within a normal physiological range. It might just be towards the lower end, but they have some of these symptoms. So it is a bit of a gray area in terms of the treatment. And that's why I think addressing as many things from a lifestyle and nutritional perspective as possible is important before going into other mechanisms. From a financial perspective, but maybe some of these aspects as well. If you do it for long enough, it's hard to not do it eventually as well. Like you may be stuck using that treatment method once you're on it. Not all of them, but maybe some of them. Again, I don't want to speak too much about the medical aspect, and we're not trying to diagnose or treat or give objective guidance here on the podcast. Yeah.
What I also think is really fascinating about, these blood test results is that, once again, like, context is required, and you can only compare your test results. Again, these freaking puns about tests and tests, but you can only compare your results to your results. There's absolutely no point in, saying, hey, I don't understand. Like, he has more muscle mass than me, yet he has lower testosterone levels than me, or vice versa, because I believe that you've been in this position before, Jack, as well, where when you've had blood test results taken, right, at peaks of your journey where you've been very, very muscular, right, just like you are now. But we're still talking about years ago. But when within that normal physiological range, you're still within the range, but you're on the lower end. But then someone else that might be out there touting that they have higher testosterone levels, yet they don't have that same level of muscle mass. So we know that, like, so it's not just testosterone equals, like, you're super duper bulky, because it's about your cell's affinity for actually grabbing hold of that testosterone as well. So even if you're on the lower end of the normal physiological range, you actually might have really high affinity for actually uptaking that testosterone, coincided with all of the other lifestyle factors too, like how consistently are you actually training? Are you sleeping well? Is your diet in check? Do you consume enough protein? Are you're not nutrient deprived or micronutrient deficient, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, there are some other aspects of nutrition which I did want to go into a little bit more depth in. So one of them would be dietary fat intake, like ensuring that you have sufficient dietary fat. And again, it's hard to list numbers in these circumstances, but I would, if you wanted to be in a very safe position with dietary fat, I would just say 1 gram per kilo of body weight, and also the quality of your fats being sufficient as well. So prioritizing plant-based fats over animal fats. And also, in addition to that, like avoiding things that we know does disrupt testosterone as well. And probably the number one thing that comes to mind at the moment is alcohol. So don't drink alcohol excessively. That should go whether or not you're invested in testosterone. I don't think alcohol, still yet to find one good use for alcohol, except maybe certain psychological aspects. But physiologically, I think we can quite confidently say now it doesn't have any benefits. There was, I don't know, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but just the prospect of resveratrol. Is there enough resveratrol in wine to
just get out to the grocery store and buy yourself some good old purple grapes. All right. I believe the same amount of resveratrol that you would find in your standard glass of wine anyway, it's equivalent to like 150 grams of grapes. So just eat the grapes.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
I'd take grapes over a glass of wine any day. All right. Yeah. Eat them with a steak, eat them with anything.
So yeah, those would be some additional points. And then we have supplementation as well. So I guess I look at supplementation in 2 different areas. Like one would be, what are the nutrients in our diet that we know are important for testosterone? And could they be raised up to an even more optimal level? So, vitamin D is one. Like, sure, vitamin D is a little hard to obtain through the diet. But, and for example, myself, like I try not to actually go out. I have sensitive skin and I don't want to get skin cancer in Australia. So I go, if I do go walking, which I do every day with the dogs, like I go at around 5. So vitamin D exposure is lower there. And so I supplement with vitamin D just to put myself into a very optimal range. And same goes for zinc and magnesium as well. Like I've got plenty of sources of zinc and magnesium in my diet, yet I choose to supplement with those to raise my levels even higher into a fully optimal range, especially for people who exercise and train regularly and train hard and test their recovery capacities. I think those are 2 supplements or 3 supplements, which I think are quite useful. And then we have like other supplements on the side, which are a bit hazy in terms of literature. They may be a little bit more circumstantial in terms of whether someone should or shouldn't take them. And that would probably be a whole nother podcast in and of itself. But I guess bottom line is what I would say on those things like ashwagandha and even other like trace minerals like boron. I don't think you're going to be missing out on, like, put it this way, you're not, your testosterone isn't not high because you're missing out on those essentially. So they're not going to be absolute game changers. I think everything that we've discussed prior to this is more important than those other supplements. And the reason I say circumstantial is because someone who has maybe low testosterone or who's like struggling with infertility, like maybe there will be a slightly more noticeable increase. But then you have to keep taking that supplement as well, maybe to get the benefits. So it's almost like a false positive. It doesn't sort of if someone's, let's say, super overweight and stressed, then they're going to get more benefit from coming down in terms of body fat and relieving their stresses rather than using ashwagandha. So, which will only have a temporary effect.
I guess while you're on the topic of supplementation, I think we should, I guess, acknowledge you go down the supplement aisle, you go to just a supplement store, and they have the testosterone boosters there as the branding. And I guess a very, very common question is, do they work or not? Is it worth the money? And I guess really the only real supplement booster that you're going to be getting in terms of if you're really wanting to raise your testosterone or hormone levels are going to be mainly and more so those anabolic products, and they're not things that you can usually buy within a supplement store. So the short answer is, if you are, I guess, looking at more of those legal testosterone boosters that are from the supplement store, they're very, very unlikely to work. It's more beneficial to put your financial investment into these other things that I guess Jack's alluded to and Tierra's alluded to as well, around diet, nutrition, lifestyle factors, stress, those sorts of things, rather than going down the rabbit hole of these other testosterone boosters, we could say.
Yeah. Like if someone's spending, let's say, $100 a month, which isn't uncommon, on testosterone boosting supplements, then I would, let's say they're getting 6 hours of sleep. So not crap sleep, but not great sleep either. I would so much rather, let's say $100 a month for a year is $1,200. I'd buy something to invest in from a sleep perspective, like an aircon for your room, or a really nice mattress, or there's that 8 Sleep product, which basically cools down your mattress or heats it up. So thinking tangentially like that as to what other variables could influence your hormonal status.
Isn't that just crazy? When an issue like this strikes, people will invest like 97% plus of their time and their energy and their money and their effort and their cognition into these things that are probably only going to provide maybe a 1 to 3% benefit anyway. Right. So yeah, it always comes back to good old lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, take care of thyself, right? And libido will be off the charts, baby. You heard it here first.